Um, Hi, this is Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. I'm with Nati Huberman, who I usually say, "Oh, this is an old friend of mine." And thank God for a guy who lives on a mountain and doesn't come down very much. I've been blessed with a lot of very amazing friends. Um, but this, I think Nati's going to be a very good friend very soon. And we may have
I
had
should be so lucky. I should be so
a,
lucky.
I should be. Well, if you come up to the Golan, I'm here for you. And we may have had a connection in the past, but I've read about Nazi. There were articles written about him, how he's putting together um, an organization project for the Third Temple. So, first of all, Nati, tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in Israel? What do you do with your time?
So I've been in Israel I made Aliyah, I should say, about 12 years ago or so. Since then, did the full military service in a combat unit in Golani, and afterwards worked in the defense ministry for some time. And after that, I went to medical school, and now I'm sort of right before my board exams, and going to be working as a doctor. I hope, God willing. And throughout all that time, essentially, I've been very involved in, started off with the Temple Mount organizations and going up to the Temple Mount, being a guide up there, and getting more and more involved over the years. And as of now, I'm on the board of Biadenu, which is the biggest Temple Mount activist organization, and continuing to bring people up there, which is a big honor, honestly. And beyond that, I've sort of extended on to more third temple related subjects and projects, which I'm very happy to be able to share with you.
That's it's. I imagine in a couple of years you'll take some time out to sleep. It sounds like you're one of these high energy kind of guys. So, um, just to focus, uh, what exactly are you doing? I mean, I know there's a huge effort. I want to emphasize when it comes to the Temple Mount. What people don't realize is the Temple Mount is actually closed to non-Muslims when Solomon built the temple and he dedicated it. I think it was like the third or fourth thing he said that God should accept the prayers of the foreigners, and not only are Jews restricted up there. We're not allowed to. We're very restricted in the hours we can go up and what we can do there. Though that's opening up. Um, Christians can't go up there. You told me Christians are not allowed to display crosses if they have a necklace. They can't take up prayer books or psalms, and the Waqif even makes them wear kind of demeaning clothes sometimes. And so it's not just Jewish rights; it's huge block intended to stop the Temple Mount from becoming the house of prayer for all nations, which it was intended to be. Um, and I have a question. You said how long have you been working towards these temple projects?
The, I mean, it depends how you define it, but the specific projects that we're probably going to be talking about are really, really, really new. Um, Pretty much around a year, around a year and a little bit.
So
These are new projects. Yeah.
so you're not new to Israel. Have you seen a change or a shift in the Israeli public towards the Temple Mount and towards the temple in general?
So there are some very interesting trends. I think, you want to look at statistics, you want to look at maybe news, where the news is heading, you want to look at, public opinion in whatever way you can, and however you can quantify it. And also get a feeling from how it feels out there. And so I'll try to put all those things together. Uh, I started going up to the Temple Mount about 15 years ago or so. It was the first time that I went up. I went up with a religious seminary, my yeshiva that I was at the time, and
Which yeshiva was that?
this is the Gush yeshiva,
Har
Har
Etzion?
Etzion. Yeah.
They were not big temple advocates, I thought.
So they're interesting. They're interesting. They're all about having different opinions and understanding
Oh,
issues
okay.
completely. And so within the yeshiva, within that seminary, there were there was every year, even back then, there was a rabbi who would give lectures preparing people to come up to the Temple Mount. You learn the different opinions on it, and connect to it through the history and all that. And at the end, you can decide if you want, you can come up with the rabbi. And so I went up about 15 years ago. It was the first time I went up,
Okay, and
and really I got to.
there weren't very many people going up 15 years ago,
Oh,
and
there
also
was, yeah,
there was a huge there still is a bit of a division among religious Jews.
right,
So and
right, right.
now it's upwards of 50, 70,000 Jews a year, which
Well, I think just the 2025, there was about 78,000 different. Yeah, yeah. It's really gone up. Even from this year to the year before, last year, 2024, I think was maybe about 50 something thousand.
that's what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
something like that. Yeah. So, I mean, 15 years ago or so, you maybe had like a couple hundreds coming up.
yeah, yeah.
Like it was not what at all what it is now. And so that alone, I think, is very telling. Very, very telling. And that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, I think, you mentioned to me earlier about, this war in particular, that you see all of a sudden that it's the temple has sort of entered into public discourse in like a lot of different places. I during this war I was in Miluim, uh, the military service reserves, and there I mean you would just see. I was very surprised because as someone coming from this background, I mean to me to have a tactical patch, that you'd put on your shoulder of the temple was kind of like, okay, maybe I'll do that, but I don't know how many other people I'll see doing that. But you see tens of thousands of people, I think, bought
Really.
these. Yeah, there are research articles being written now. I know of at least, of more than one person writing articles about this now, where you find like what is this phenomenon going on that in this war you find these soldiers buying these tactical patches saying, "Bimera b'yameinu," soon in our days with a picture of the temple, and they put it as a tactical patch on their arm, and they walk around with it, go into battle with it. It's mind blowing.
Well,
Um,
one of the things I was told was, first of all, the October 7th attack, the Arabs called it the Al-Aqsa flood. And I don't know if you know this, but I think it was 100 days after the war started, the Hamas spokesman went online and he said the reason why we attacked was because they brought the red heifers over to Israel and they're getting ready to build the temple, and we've got to stop that.
right.
And what I think is really hilarious or tragic is the symbol for Hamas is the Dome of the Rock with swords. And meanwhile, the Dome of the Rock is not Al-Aqsa. The Dome of the Rock is Kubbat Sikra, I think it's called, but Al-Aqsa is the black dome that's on the southern end of the Temple Mount. So the fact that they can't even identify what they call their holy site is kind of ironic, tragic, however you want to say. But I heard a lot of soldiers went down and they said, look, if this is what they're fighting for, we should at least know about it and have it in our consciousness. So there was a big consciousness of like, we are fighting for the temple. We're fighting on the Temple Mountain. That's what they're fighting for. So we better step up that in our game. So there was a lot
Yeah.
of that. So so what exactly are you doing for the third temple?
So there's a number of projects, thank God. You know, in Judaism, you have, this sort of taboo topic on who is going to be building the third temple. You're talking about the literal structure of it. Who's going to be building the building of it? And a lot of people sort of assume, okay, I'm talking within the Jewish world now. The third temple will fall from heaven, somehow it'll get there, And I think even if you do say that, it's pretty obvious that the the manpower that's going to be running the temple will not fall from heaven, no matter what opinion you hold. You're not going to be having the Kohanim, the priests, falling from heaven, knowing exactly what to do. The Levites all of a sudden knowing exactly how to sing.
Mm.
You're not going to know. You need the people who are going to be doing the actual services and to know how to do it. They're very complicated services to know. Um, you open up
And
the
we've been out of practice, and there are a million and one little details that you got to get the details right. So,
exactly. If order, the word order is the name of the game in the temple. You open up the book of Leviticus, for example, you see how the detail, just the detail on exactly what needs to be done, when it needs to be done
mhm.
by who, and that's extremely important. That's part of the whole the service that's supposed to be happening there. And so, what one of my projects is that we're working on now. It's through an organization called Mamlechet Kohanim, which is basically you can translate that as the priestly kingdom in English. And it's an organization where we do the practice runs for the Kohen priests in the temple. I'd love if you could come, if other people are invited to come see it as well. We have a massive mizbeach, an altar, which is to size, and this it was huge. I mean, it's like very high up, very
in Mitz
wide.
in Mitzvah Yericho,
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to emphasize that the model altar in Mitzvah Yericho is not made of stone. It's not um, kosher to be used as the altar, but as you pointed out, they have to practice the service, and that includes a lot of the sacrifices. The offerings would be lined up on the ramp, so it actually has a ramp, and then you have to know where to put things on the top. And also, so you have that location where you can actually practice do do dry runs, but full dress dry runs, and that's
There,
incredibly
there,
important.
exactly. There's that, and then afterwards as well, we have a community that I help to run. It's a community. You can call it. I don't know if guild would be the proper term for it, but like a professional community where you have it because it's a profession. I mean, you go back 2,000 years, the Kohanim, the priests. This is what they would be. This is what they would know how to do the best, and because of that, they would get the priestly gifts that are prescribed to them throughout the Torah, to help support them because it's like a profession, and so we have a community, a professional community where we're going to be setting professional standards. We have workshops to offer them on exactly what to do, and there's a lot to know. There really is a lot to know, and until now, from my knowledge at least, there have been these priestly Kohen workshops, but they're mostly in theory. You open a book and you sort of look, read from there and look at the diagrams or whatnot. But practicing it is something else entirely, and
Mm.
that's what's been missing.
Mm. So, is I remember when many years ago when they didn't first start doing it, but they were doing a practice run of the Passover offering, and it has to be put on a pomegranate branch. And they realized it couldn't be a dry pomegranate branch because it would burn. And it was just all the details of practically how do you roast Passover offering on that branch, and how is it prepared? How is it wrapped up? There are a million and one details. Is this with I'm just curious. Is this with Rav Baruch Kahana?
He is basically he's running the course.
Mm.
I set up. I bring the groups of the Kohanim to come practice with him, and he runs the course itself. Essentially, he teaches it.
Are you are you a Cohen?
Yeah,
Are you a Cohen?
I am not a Kohen. I'm happy to help. I am very happy to help, and I on more of a personal note, I don't know if this is the right place to go into all of that, but I do have a Levitical and a Levi side to me, and we're not exactly sure if I would be kosher to work in the temple or not, but I do descend from that place as well.
Yeah. I just want to emphasize this is something that a lot of people who are not Jewish will not understand that the Jews have been really, we are really scrupulous and meticulous about protecting the lineage of Kohanim and Levites. Um, like I can walk around my city and go, "Oh, that guy's a Cohen, that guy's a Cohen, that guy's a Levi," because we know who they are. Kohanim, they're afforded, they're given very public honors about when they go up to read from the Torah, and when they bless the congregation. They're not allowed to go into cemeteries. They're restricted in who they can marry. So there's it's a very public thing. We know who they are, and on the gravestones, they put whether the person is a Levi or Cohen. And in Cohen, they usually engrave symbols of the hands of how the
Right.
Kohanim. And I've had friends who were Baal Tshuva, meaning they didn't grow up religious, and then they go back and they see on their grandfather's gravestone, they say, "Oh, I'm a Levi. Oh, I'm a Cohen." We're very, very strict about that. We know about it. And it's not just like, "Oh, I feel like a Levi today."
Right.
So it's a
It's I think yeah, I think that's a really important point that these are essentially these are preserved sub identities, sub ethnic identities within the Jewish people. You cannot become a Kohen, you cannot become a Levite. You're born
mhm,
into that because your father was that.
mhm.
It's a sort of tribal identity within the Jewish greater identity.
Yeah.
And that's a really important point, actually.
And it's been substantiated with genetic proof. We have what's called the Cohen gene. So
Right.
this is not made up. It's not. It's very, very important. So you can't just. And I emphasize this. There's a tradition, and I've heard from Christians. They'll say, "Oh, he's a priest in the tradition of Melchizedek," but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is Jews who we know we have the genealogical family clear tradition that they
Right.
are descended from Aaron the priest, the brother of Moshe, and they've observed the strict marriage laws and the strict laws pertaining to the priestly
Right.
caste.
And
It is
I
a
think yeah, I think that that's also a point, for those who are not Jewish and or perhaps Christian or wherever they come from. Of course, you can look in if you want to see this in the Bible itself. You can open up. I think it's most clear perhaps in the Book of Chronicles. You open it up and you'll see that it's just lists family name of families and family trees, and it's just one after the other all of these names, and you'll find that that's exactly what it says, that these are literal descendants of, and that's sort of where the legitimacy of them comes in, because the it was like a bloodline was chosen as these are the people who are going to be doing these things now, and that's what we're essentially trying to bring back with this professional community.
there was at one point, and I imagine there still is, and I imagine you're keeping track of who the Kohanim are who have been trained and who know how to perform the ceremonies.
Exactly, exactly. It's not only that, we can go into higher resolutions here as well, because yes, you mentioned that there's the genetic studies, and there still is a lot more to be done in those areas. I think it's one of the most interesting things to me, honestly, as someone who studied genetic, through genetic history, and I love that stuff. There's a lot more to be said about that, but you can go into higher resolution. We have Kohen families that are direct descendants of specific people in the Bible.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, like there is the Tawil family. There is the Sakali family. There are very specific families. What that will say we are descendants of uh, Pinchas, Phineas from the Bible. We are descendants from directly from Eli from the Bible. We are descendants of Tzadok from the Bible. And there's a lot more to be done to understand, well, okay, who are these families exactly? How does that work genetically? Anyways, there's a lot to talk about that, but it fits in as well to a lot of different prophecies, talking about the future temple, where specific families are mentioned in Ezekiel, specifically the descendants of Tzadok are mentioned there. And so we have those people with us today. These are families that have kept these traditions alive, going back very, 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 very many long years. Sometimes even name after name after name, which is incredible. I mean, just incredible.
So you have actual, I imagine you have classes as well to teach people in theory, and then you also have the dry runs, the practice runs.
Right. So for us, the big thing is the dry runs, the actual practice, because thankfully there's actually a lot of organizations that sort of teach the theory behind all of this stuff, which is very important by itself. But the way I see my job is essentially to connect all these little dots that are already there. Um,
That's so
yeah,
important because I've been reporting on this for a long time, and there are a lot of organizations, and they really aren't very good at coming together. There's no, like, I'm sure in the times of the temple, there was like a set organization within the temple. There was even the financial, the Gizbar, who took care of the finances, and they were organized into 52 groups of Kohanim. They all had their time when they would come, and it was very well organized. And it's just not they haven't quite gotten together on the organization yet. So what you're doing
yeah,
is hugely
exactly.
important. It's hugely
It,
important.
thank you.
So also, and I also want to say, um, there's what blew me away when I went to the to the reenactments was you would have the guys who were Kohanim, the the men who would be running the reenactment, but they would bring their kids, their little 10-year-old sons.
Yeah.
And you know that when these kids get to be 18, 19, 20 years old, it's like it's it's second nature for them. They've grown up seeing it. So
They
they're
they they grow up. It's part of who they are. It's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it's really we're gonna it's like this is the generation of the temple. We can see it. We can see it.
Yeah.
So what about the clothes, the Big Day Kahuna, the clothes of the Kahuna? Is there any organization that does that?
So there are so okay. So like when we talk, I mean, I mentioned this to you before about the sort of the place of the different organizations because each one has its own place, each one has its own job that it sees that it's doing, and that's all incredible. But it's important to connect the dots, and the dots also include individual people. And I know of two families that work on these bigdei kyuna, the uniform of the priests. And they also have courses that they offer people to learn how to basically sew it and to crochet. There were different curtains that they would have as well in the temple.
Mm.
And so there are families that this is that they see themselves as their job,
There's
and they
there's one woman. All she does is she makes the tolat shani. The how do you say tolat shani? The I think it's is it the scarlet threads,
right, the scarlet
and
threads, yeah.
and they finally figured out how to make it, and that's what she does. And
Or you can actually go with them. I forget what month it is that you can find them, but
right,
you can go and actually collect them,
tiny
and
little bug that grows on one specific type of tree, and it only is like 1 month out of the year, and it's like you have to gather so much to get just the tiniest bit of dye. It's
yeah.
crazy, but it's the temple. And so anyway, and we finally have at least pretty much we have the tchelet, the blue dye, and so this is all it is coming together. Thank God.
It's coming together, and I think towards Pesach, and this is towards Passover, and this is I think going to be one of the biggest things for us as not for me, of course, I'm not a Cohen, but for the professional Cohen community to work on. It's coming up to Passover, the Passover offering. This is probably the most essential and basic sort of temple service in Judaism, for a number of reasons. I mean, it was the first sacrifice that was brought in Egypt. That's why we commemorate it every single year. Um, but just the importance of it is all over the Jewish sources, and it's not even that difficult to do when you compare the rest of the service in the temple.
And you sit down and eat it. If I could show off and make my rabbi proud, um, out of all the positive commandments in the Bible, the worst punishment you could get is what's called karet. Karet means cutting off. You get cut off, your soul gets cut off from the nation of Israel. And there are only two positive commandments that if you don't do them, all the others are prohibitions. But there are two positive commandments that if you don't do them, you get karet. You get cut off from the Jewish people. One of them is Brit Milah, circumcision. And the other, if I'm not mistaken, and the other is the Passover offering, meaning if you don't bring the Passover offering, you're cut off from the Jewish people. And we should be able to bring it right now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. This
so.
is by the way. I mean, if you can we can go and delve into the how what is the acceptance rate of temple related activities today amongst Jews? But if you ask, the rabbinic figures who have studied these topics, and I'm talking across the board, doesn't matter where you come from, within Orthodoxy, I'm talking about though. You ask them, what about the Korban Pesach sacrifice? Can we do it? Can we not do it? What's the story? You'll get a pretty much a resounding yes, you can do it across the board. This was a question that was asked, a question of Jewish law, a halachic question that was asked of the Khatam Sofer, who was, they call him the founder of Orthodoxy or ultra Orthodoxy, however you want to put that. This was about maybe 250 years ago or so, if I'm getting the year correct. They asked him, what about sacrifices? I mean, he lived, in Europe at the time. This was the age of the Ottomans. And they asked him, he said, what about the sacrifices? Can we not bring them, any of them today? What is the story? And he said by the end of a very long answer, he said, definitely the Pesach we could bring. So why don't we bring it? Because the Sultan is a very strict man, is what he said. Ish kapdan. He's a very strict man, so he wouldn't let us, just go up to the Temple Mount and bring it. But now the situation is completely different. We're not in Europe 250 years ago, or we're not in Iraq, 100 years ago. We have the Temple Mount in our hands now.
At the
Um,
risk of getting political, the only thing stopping us is us. So
yeah.
we should be able to bring the Passover offering. Okay, so we have the Kohanim, we have the people, we have the clothing. Do we have the vessels that we need?
So right. So the vessels is the Temple Institute, Mechon Mikdash. They have done incredible work when it comes to creating the vessels. Um, you can go visit them in the old city. They have a lot of these vessels on display. You can go see it yourself. It's awesome. And perhaps the most essential thing, though, in terms of a utensil, is the mizbeach, is the altar itself. And a lot of thought has gone into that on not just how to make it, but also where to place it, because that's a huge topic.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have I'm sure commented to this at some point. You have to put the altar exactly where it needs to go on the Temple Mount,
if
not
if I
over there.
if I can add one addendum, um, there it's another thing that I don't think non-Jews quite understand. Um, when we were in the desert, the tabernacle moved around. So essentially,
Mm,
the altar moved around. When we came to Israel, it also moved around a little bit until it got to Shiloh, and then in Shiloh, it was there for 400 some years. I think it was 380 years. Um, and then the altar got then the Arona Brit, the Ark of the Covenant, got taken, and when it came back, it wasn't clear where the altar was, but then when King David acquired the Temple Mount and dedicated the altar on the Temple Mount, that was referred to in the Torah as God's place. He said, "I will show you the place," and Beit Bechira, the place that He chooses. And since David did that, Jews are not permitted to bring an offering anyplace else except for that specific site where David had the altar. Non-Jews can bring offerings anywhere to God, to the God of Israel, anywhere except for the Temple Mount. Okay, if they want to bring an offering to God on the Temple Mount, We act as their priests. They bring the offering to us. We take it up to the Kohen on the Temple Mount, and the Kohen offers up their offering there. But we have to bring it to the specific location that King David sanctified. Um, and
Right.
that's what you're referring to.
So that's what I'm referring to, and it's good that you're pointing that out. I've actually from our non-Jewish friends, it's actually a pretty common question that I've gotten, which is why the Temple Mount? Why don't you pick somewhere else? Why don't you make another tabernacle again? I mean, Mishkan, a mobile temple. Why don't you do that again? And I understand the question, I really do. But in the end of the day, we're not doing so much what we want to do. We're doing what is bless you. We're doing what the what is told to us to do by our tradition, by the Bible. By it's not up to us. It's not a service that we choose how to do. It's a service that's chosen by God for us to do, and that includes the location as well. Back to that idea of just very strict order. If you go back, you open up, Genesis, and you look through there on the creation story. It's really a story of going from chaos to order. And the temple and there's a lot of literary parallels between the temple stories and as well the creation of the world stories. The temple in is supposed to be the final form of order that we have from bringing the world from chaos to order. And so the location is important, the people who are doing it is important, and also the time is important. And those are sort of those three things: space,
Mm.
time, and the people doing it is important. But it's supposed to be, and this is also an important point, it's supposed to be a unifying force for everyone. It's supposed to unify all of the world together. And that's why it's very important to get as many people in the world involved as we can.
And
I'm sure you agree with that point.
everyone has their place. It's not, it sounds kind of like exclusivity and where you push people out, but it's actually precisely the opposite. It's the ultimate pluralism. I need you to be different. We need Kohen. We need
Right.
Levi. We need Israel. We need the 70 nations. Everyone has
Exactly.
their place, and it's all. And your emphasis of order. I mean, gosh, do we need that in the world today? There's too much of like, it's what I feel. If I'm a man, I'm a man. It's what I say. If I'm a woman, whatever I want. And it's like, no, there's a level of truth. And once we have the truth, then we can start moving forward. And if it's everyone as they feels, then we're not going anywhere. And so that's I think something that's sorely missing in the world today, which is that order. And like we pray towards the Temple Mount, so it's even orienting us in space, and it's orienting us in time. And we see that a lot of the um, disputes concerning the Temple Mount is rewriting history, telling lies. So this is going to bring truth and peace to the world, and that's what
You know,
we're hoping.
I've been up there, and I was a Temple Mount guide for many years, and I've taken up all sorts of people, and there was one time I took up actually five Marines, U.S. Marines that were stationed in Jerusalem, and I went up with them, and we were walking around, and I was I include everything in my tours. I talk about what's there, what was there, I talk about everything, and I said the word temple. It just came out of my mouth, I guess. You know, on the Temple Mount. And a member of the Jordanian Waqf, which is the religious body from Jordan that is, so and so so-called administering the site, he comes up to me and he says, "What did you just say?" And I said, I told him, the temple was here. He said, "No, no, 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 no. You're not allowed to say that here. You have to leave now."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So he gave you a hard time?
He gave me a hard time, but in the end of the day, I mean, this is sovereign Israeli territory. This is not, the Ayatollah regime that can just control what someone says in a public space.
Well,
So
if it makes you feel better, um, if you remember, Dr. Gabriel Barkai passed away two weeks ago, and
Yeah.
he would give tours on the Temple Mount, and they used to be all over him and giving him a really hard time for giving the true history of the Temple Mount and of the temple, the history, the biblical references, and they used to give him such a hard time. But if you knew Dr. Gabriel Barkai, he was an old man, but he went through the Holocaust. You don't mess with him. He would look at the walk of cards and just be like, go away. I know what I'm saying. So you're in good company. You're in very good company. Um, so I'm wondering, you also there's something also that's relatively new that's really beautiful. We know, I mean, it's written in the Torah explicitly, the clothing of the Kohanim. We know who the Kohanim are specifically. In the temple service, we know. And then there's the Levites. And you mentioned that you have a personal connection to them. The Levites have come an awful long way in recent years, haven't they?
The Levites, when I came to start working on these projects, and building up these identities, because that's really what this is. This is, reinvestigating the identities that have sort of been, passed down. But what are these? There's a lot of investigation needs to be done. In terms of institution, of dots to connect, the Kohanim, there's a lot of dots to connect. The Leviim, the Levites, I'm still looking. I haven't found as many dots as I thought I would to connect. And so that's not a problem. I mean, that's an opportunity. I see that as a opportunity. But in terms of Levites, they had two jobs essentially, which require to set up the institutions for those things, which are the singers, the choir, the musical instrumentation accompanying the temple service, and two, they were the guards of the temple and the Temple Mount complex. And not much has gone on in those directions. I mean, they've come a long
Right.
way because I talk to Levites who are very, very connected to their heritage, and I love that. Everyone's just the other day actually, I as part of the work on the Levite heritage. I met with a pretty big. I don't want to use names at this point because I don't know. Hopefully it'll work out. Or, if not, then okay. But I met with a very big music producer in Israel to start work on songs that the Levites can use basically. And he told me the Levites that he knows who are singers, each one is like their own world. Everyone has their own exact things
Mm.
that they wanted the music to be exactly like they want it, and so you talk to Levites. I think it's pretty common actually among these Levitical descendants. Everyone has their own ideas of exactly what they want to go on, and that's beautiful. But we need something to unite everyone together.
We need
And
harmony. We need harmony. Harmony.
exactly, exactly, there needs to be harmony. And the reason why I see this as such a big opportunity is because you open up the book of Ezra, from the Bible, the Old Testament. You open up the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, those books, and you see there that at the time of the return to Zion after the Babylonian exile, they looked for Levites. They had their Kohens. They had the different families that came back. They had some families that came back. Not everyone, but they had families. They looked around for Levites, and there was no one. None of the Levites came back, and they had to, really scrounge and find them to bring them back. And so the fact that thank God I get to work with Levites and to help them come back to their heritage is one of the biggest. I think it's such a big, like we say, a tikkun. It's a fixing of what happened once, and now it won't happen again. And I think that's beautiful. Um,
They do have something that I was surprised was a couple years ago. It was only a few years ago that they actually came up with a uniform clothing for the Levites.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
was like, it's not written about in the Bible, though you kind of assume that they did have a uniform of sorts.
yeah,
It's not like the Kohanim. Their clothing was explicitly described in the Torah. and I was actually very pleased to see it caught on. It seems to be very popular amongst Levites.
So I'll tell you what institutions do exist for the Levites. You have the Temple Institute, which is doing a great work. They have a choir, a Levitical choir, which is great. And I've my cousin is actually in it. I'm close with them. The head of the choir, I've sat with him. We've discussed things, and they're doing some great work. They have a choir. Um, Beyond that, there's not much. There's sort of what's called Kol Olam, which is once a year. It's just a big singing event for anyone of Levite heritage. I don't know if
which
you've been to
is
that.
which is I've seen videos of it. It is it gives me goosebumps. It's so amazingly beautiful. I really feel like that's what was in the temple. You have
Right,
hundreds. I think they even have like 600 Levites singing, and it was just wow. They're standing on the steps leading up to the Temple Mount on the southern wall, and it's just like wow.
right.
It's really awe-inspiring, literally, literally.
It is. It's sort of like a little bit of a vision of sort of what to expect, I think.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, there's a lot of work to be done. You open up, Jewish classic sources, you open up the Bible, you'll find that there are 24 shifts or posts, however you want to translate the word mishmar. Um, and these were all descendants of Samuel, of Shmuel HaNavi. These were all descendants of his, who was a Levite himself. And in the Second Temple, not likely that that was the case, but they were organized in shifts so that
Mhm.
there would always be those Levites that knew exactly when they were coming to do exactly what they were going to be doing. Um, and so there's a professional community for that as well. And so one of the first steps that we're doing, and this is through a number of organizations. The Biadenu is, we were working on essentially creating a sort of a program to create a choir, a professional choir. This isn't, to fight with Temple Institute, not at all. I think it's good that there are multiple sort of Levitical sources. I think that's a good thing. Um, but that's one of the things that we're working on essentially right now is to come up with the songs that would be sang. And then
Mm.
the words we have, the singing we don't have.
The words are psalms, sure. If I may, two things. One, the Bnei Korach, the offspring, the descendants of Korach, are going to be in the third temple, playing their music according to tradition. Also, for people who keep Shabbat, there's an interesting thing that you can use electricity on Shabbat in the temple. And the third temple is not going to be exactly like the second temple. It'll have modern conveniences, air conditioning, things like that. So the third temple will have amplifiers and widescreen TVs.
It's the winter now in Israel, and it is freezing for all of us who live near Jerusalem, myself included. Our floors are freezing, and the number one question that I get from Kohanim who come to our course is, I need to be
Uh,
barefoot. Will there be heated floors in the temple? Will that be a thing?
Absolutely. In the temple itself, they had heated floors. They had like a double floor, and they would put burning wood under it, and the air currents would heat the tiles. And when the mikveh, they used to drop in heated stones into the mikveh on the temple for the kohanim to go into the mikveh. And it wouldn't be ice cold water, but third temple is going to be electricity, air conditioned, heated floors. Um, I don't know,
You name it. You name it.
yeah, espresso machines. It'll be. I mean, and they're planning on building a an underground railway directly to the Temple Mount.
Right,
So you could go directly from the airport to the temple by train. It would be
right.
it'll be
That,
amazing. It'll be
yeah.
amazing, God willing. So you're actually writing the music as well?
And not me personally,
No,
but
not you personally,
right.
but
We are in touch though with some big. So I mentioned one project, which is again to start writing some of the sheet music for Levine. Another project, which is again, I don't want to get into names because it's all at the beginning of it, and we need to see where it goes. But another project would essentially be to create a type of yeshiva, like a type of seminary, a type of study hall, a beit midrash, you know, for Levim, for the songs of the Levim, where we could research. There would be a research center to research, the different, some people would like to argue that you could research and find the original sort of tunes that would be used, or at least the type of music that would be have been sung in the temple. Uh, Perhaps it's worth the research, definitely. But that would be like to do research on that and as well to teach it. And so there are a number. So that's another project that I have the great joy of working on as well. Hopefully, we'll see some results from that pretty soon. But it's all essentially to teach Levine to be able to sing. That's what it is in the end of the day. And it's also at that point, it's extremely important, actually, a really important point for me to mention that, like I mentioned, 15 years ago, the Temple Mount was a certain way, and now it is a completely different way.
Hmm.
And part of that is the singing. You can come onto the Temple Mount now. I can send you videos. I'm sure you yourself have been up and maybe you've seen yourself. You can 10 years ago they would arrest you just for mumbling uh, on the Temple Mount.
I was
Uh,
always afraid they would arrest you if you closed your eyes, if you moved your
Ridiculous.
if you moved your lips, if you cried. And I was always like, man, when I go up to the Temple Mount, I'm going to cry like a baby. And thank God that's not it's not that way anymore. Thank
It's
God.
not that way anymore, and I've seen it be that way, and was ridiculous back then. And now you can come, you can sing, you can dance. It's an entirely different experience. And so what we're trying to do essentially is turn the experience on the Temple Mount to become more temple centered. You can come up to the Temple Mount and it's incredible. It's a powerful experience. The sanctity, the kedusha is still there, and it's incredible. But the service that's supposed to be going on is supposed to be the Levites singing, and that's supposed to be sort of filling your ears when you come up there. You experience it in a certain way, and that we can do that right now because you can kind of go up and sing.
Not so long ago, there were three Levium who went up and sang,
There,
and
those are my guys.
those are your guys. Oh my gosh, God bless them. And it's just like on
Yeah,
one hand, you're like, no brainer. What's the big deal? And on the other hand, no, it's a really big deal. It's like the first time a Levite has sung on the Temple Mount for since the temple stood,
yeah.
and three Levium. Wow, it's really it's opening up gates. It really is. So here comes the big question. Coming up on Pesach, okay? Let's say a week before Pesach, the Israeli government says, okay, guys, go for it. How long would it take us to organize even like the bare minimum, barely acceptable Passover offering? How long would it take?
Not very long. Okay, so you'd have to essentially what you'd have to do is you'd have to dismantle and reassemble an altar in the location that it's supposed to be, um, which doesn't take that long. We have the stones, we can set it up.
Right.
Um,
We
so
have the
you'd have to bring
stones. Let's emphasize that. We have the stones ready to go. We just have
we
to
the
get
stone.
a high school basketball team. Everyone grabs a stone and runs. Yeah.
We'll make a mad break for it. So listen, they say that the Kohanim were zrizim. Our tradition says that they were very very quick. They were quick with everything they did. They didn't mess around. That's what we're aiming for. So we got the stones. So it might take you know mm, might take an hour or two to bring them. I'm not sure how long it would take to bring them. We'd have to assemble them. That wouldn't be that difficult. I don't think so. And then we'd have to bring at least, depends. I mean, how many people sign up for their Pesach sacrifice? Because to sacrifice basically what you're doing is you're preparing the animal in order to eat it at home. That's what you're essentially doing for the Passover lamb. Um, And so you'd need kosher animals, not just kosher in the sense of I can eat it at home in a regular way, but it needs to be kosher for a sacrifice, which is more strict. And so we have those. There are organizations that have those, and I know personally a rabbi who goes before Pesach to go check to see if these animals are kosher to be brought. And so that wouldn't be a problem as well. Um, and then, of course, you have to get as many people to sign up as possible because all you really need to do is eat a tiny little piece of it. So, and you need to send one person as a representative to the Temple Mount. They'll bring the animal and then they bring it home, and their entire family or whoever's, joining them can eat it with them. And so, all that is after, of course, Pesach night. The day before Pesach is when you're supposed to bring the sacrifice. And so all in all, probably a couple hours to set it up and get it everything done.
So when you said not very long, you meant really not very long. You're talking about
I,
you're talking about if
I
you
mean
sit
that
down and watch a rerun, you might miss it. It's like,
that is the goal. That is the goal to be able to, and that's why we have to be prepared because really these things can happen. Like in the snap of a finger. I mean, these things can happen. Oh hey, there's permission now to do it. Go for it. And no one's gonna help you do it except if you've already prepared for it. Um, and so, in that sense, we really do see ourselves as sort of like the shlichim, the emissaries of the Jewish people, because once it's allowed, it's like okay, well, who's figured it out already? Who's going to be doing it? Let's go, and
right,
then
right. And
got to be
I
ready.
actually I know someone who keeps a lamb on his he gets it before the holiday and keeps it on his balcony. He lives on Har Zaitim on the Mount of Olives and keeps it there. And he has a neighbor who is a Cohen who has a knife. And he's like, if we get the okay, I'm gonna grab it, run up with my neighbor, we'll get it ready, and I'll have it for Pesach. So he does it every year. God bless him. He's an amazing guy.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So
They
people,
say about some of the biggest rabbis, like the Chafetz Chaim. He had, he was ready to go. He learned all of the laws about how to be a Kohen. He was a Kohen. He, told everyone else they need to prepare to be a Kohen. He had his bags packed to
hmm
come to Israel.
hmm
Those are the types of people that we're dealing with. These are great people, really.
Well, I'm feeling kind of old. It's your generation. My generation, we did our part. But you know, what I've been watching over the last couple of years in Israel. Um, I remember at one point I was working as a school guard in a high school. I'm going back 20 years or so. And the teachers were all like, we were sitting there in a teacher meeting, and I was the school guard, and I was just overhearing them. And they're like, wow, these kids are, it was in Efrat, which is in Gush Etzion, which is settlement. And they were like, these kids are so chutzpah. They're so chutzpah. They're really tough. They're tough kids. And then one of the teachers said, yeah, they're going to have to be. They're going to bring the Mashiach. They're going to bring Geulah. They're going to bring redemption. And that's what we're
Wow.
looking at. That's what we're looking at. We're looking, I mean, your generation, 2.5 years of war from seven different directions, and to come out of it not only to be victorious, but to come out with such a vision of the redemption of the third temple, and compare that to what's happening around the world. Israel's really being a light unto the nations in a way we've never been before. We're showing them, look, we're 3 hours away from from bringing the Passover. 3 hours away. Come on, just a few more steps. Let's do it. We're almost through. We're almost through the sea. We see the water here. We see the water, but right there is the shore. Let's go. And it's really so. I mean, just to understand that is remarkable, and to actually see it, and it's happening, and it's
Well,
unbelievable.
you know what? I think it comes back to what you were saying before, that if the only obstacle in the way truly is ourselves.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think an issue of education, and because of because of your articles that you write, because of the outreach that you do, and a lot of other people. I mean, like a lot of people have gone into this for years and years and years, bringing up these topics, making sure people understand, hey, why can't this be done? This is something that is totally doable. This is part of, a bigger process that's going on that we can all take part in. And it's because of that buildup that it's just that's why, like you're saying, it could in a snap of a finger, it could just happen.
Could really, if we just, and I've even seen like anti-religious members of Knesset who were formerly anti-religious. There was this one woman, she stood up and she had seen an auditorium full of soldiers singing about Mashiach. And she was like, I've always been lied to. They've been teaching me that, the peace process is Mashiach. She's like, no, these guys know. These guys know. And it's really happening. We're so, so close. Also, if I may, two technical points. One is for people who don't understand, we don't need a temple structure in order to begin the offerings. As a matter of fact, when we came back from Babylonia, they started the temple service immediately, but it took them a while to build the temple. And there was even, I think it's a verse, I think in Ezra and Nehemiah saying, how can God doesn't have a house and you're sitting in tiled houses and houses with tiled roofs. That's not okay. And that got
Yeah,
them to build the temple.
in
So
a
we
few places. Yeah, it says that in a few places.
yeah, so we don't need the temple structure in order to start the service, and we're not supposed to. We don't ask, should we, or we just ask, what do we have to do? What are we required? And so when we say we can bring the offerings, it's more of a question of, is that what we're required to do right now? If we're required to do it, then we got to get on it. And this is going to be really technical, and I apologize, but I've been writing about the red heifers that were brought to Israel,
Hmm.
and there's this misconception that we can't start the temple service until the red heifers are ready, until the ashes of the red heifer are prepared. That's not accurate. Um, we are required to bring public time-bound offerings, even if we are ritually impure. And the public time bound offerings are the twice daily offerings, the Korban Tamid, a lot of the feast offerings, and the Passover offerings. So we're required to bring them, even if we're ritually impure and even if we don't have a temple structure, which means I got to find a really fast car to take me from the Golan to Jerusalem. If the WhatsApp group says, "Hey, we're starting," um, uh, that's another thing. I mean, the temple will have its own WhatsApp website to tell us about stuff. It's going to
Right.
be very different and probably a lot better. Um, you live stream the offerings.
The tweets from the temple will be
Yeah.
legendary,
Cohen
legendary.
Cohen Gadol says really loved it. 10 out of 10.
Those Kohanim were trained really well.
Yeah. So that's where we're holding. Anyway, I hope to be speaking to you again soon about any more of your amazing projects. God willing. And if anyone wants to get updates from you, is there a website, a group, some way they can hear from you? Some they can connect
There's
with you?
I so I work through a number of websites, a number of organizations, sorry, including Biadenu, which
Hmm.
has a newsletter that people can sign up for. It's news from the Temple Mount, including the Levite Project as well. The Cohen project is because it's the nature of it is a lot less publicized because it's a professional community. Right now, I don't have anywhere that I'm publicizing about it, but expect to see that at some point. I think I'm going to be trying during the Jewish holidays to basically put on a big show that people can come visit to see these Kohanim in action, practicing what these things are. And so, expect that, expect to see more, and we will eventually have
I,
a
I
website as well for the temple.
I've been to a few of the Passover reenactments. I used to work as a cook at Papagayo in Jerusalem, which is an all-you-can-eat Brazilian meat restaurant. And then when I went to see the Kohanim reenact the Passover offering, I was just like, I just want a little piece of meat in my mouth. It isn't just about give me meat. It's about Kohanim preparing me, Israel, to connect to God. It's a totally different thing. It's we haven't seen the glory of the temple and we haven't seen what it's about, then we really don't know what it's about. We There's nothing like it in the world today. The concept of holy, the concept of the Hebrew word for sacrifice is not sacrifice, it's korban, which means coming closer. And this will be all about coming closer to God. Really, God willing. Okay,
God willing.
Nati, thank you so much. We will be in touch. And God willing, people got a lot out of this. God willing.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you.